Who's actually right about how to handle things in a zombie apocalypse, Rick or Shane? Welcome back to Lost in Games Unscripted, the series where I talk about whatever comes to mind at any given time. And today, that's actually going to be a conversation about Rick and Shane from the Walking Dead TV show. Now, a lot of people have broken down Shane in particular, but also Rick, and there's been a lot of discussion about the two of them. And generally speaking, a lot of people, the majority of people that I've seen at least, tend to think that like Shane had it right and that Rick eventually came around and became more like Shane later on. I disagree with that though, for a couple of reasons. Now, first of all, Shane overall as a survivor, he's okay. He's got some ideas that, you know, he knows that you got to sacrifice certain things and you have to be willing to do what it takes to survive. But also, that doesn't get him very far, does it? Because he's dead by the end of season 2, whereas Rick is still alive and has his own spin-off show later on, right? So obviously, Shane's way of doing things wasn't the end-all, be-all. It wasn't the greatest way. And even Shane at the last minute couldn't really do what it took. He could not shoot Rick. And you would say, well, that, you know, he should have shot him. That was the right thing to do. But the thing is Rick, if you look at his way of looking at things, he wanted the old way. He still wanted to kind of keep some of that morality that they had. He wanted to keep some of the law and order that they had, at least for a while. But he also knew that there were going to be hoops that he had to jump through. He knew that there were going to be things that had to be done. If you look at, for instance, when he goes back, when they go back to Atlanta to try and save Merle after he's handcuffed him to the roof, which the first thing to show that Rick knows that he has to do certain things to survive, that the world's not the same as it used to be, is when he handcuffs Merle to the roof of the building, right? Because there is no way that he would have done that prior to the apocalypse. So he knows that the rules aren't exactly the same. And he even calls that out to Andrea when they're back in the store, and he's telling her, like, look, you can take this necklace for your sister. There's no laws anymore. The looting rules don't apply. It's fine. It's not going to hurt anything, right? But where you see it really shine is when Rick and Glenn and Daryl go back to get Meryl, and they are confronted with the situation where Glenn is captured and they have to go and they have to face the guys at the nursing home, right? In the old world, in the old way of doing things, if Rick was just focusing on those, it would have been, he would have had to call him back up. He would have maybe gone into it on his own, right? But in the new way of doing things, he realizes that sometimes you got to go above and beyond, but also you can't shoot first and ask questions later all the time. Because you have to realize that not everybody's going to be evil. Not everybody's out to get you. Not everybody's trying to hurt you. So he uses some common sense, some logic. He knows that maybe they'll shoot us when we go in there. You know, maybe they're going to try and kill us. But we've got their guy here too. None of them want to die either. And it works out in the end, obviously, thanks to Granny coming out and saving the day by bringing Rick back to show him what's going on and everything. But he knows that there's a balance that has to be struck there. Sometimes you have to handcuff the racist dude to the roof, and sometimes you have to use some common sense and realize that the situation might not be as escalated as you think it is at first. That being said, he does eventually go on to become pretty ruthless at times. And it's interesting to me because the time to be ruthless would be in the very beginning of things. You know, as things progressed, as we got further along, that ruthlessness wouldn't necessarily be as big of a thing. It wouldn't be something that you would have to have in a realistic scenario. Now, in the TV show, you have to understand, all right, all media is meant to evoke an emotional response, and you have to continually have something happening. It doesn't matter if it's a game, a movie, a TV show, a book. You have to have stuff constantly happening because otherwise it gets boring, right? People tune out real quick. If The Walking Dead had, within the first 3 seasons, pretty much gotten rid of the zombies and had Rick and the group happily living on the farm and everything was hunky-dory, there wouldn't have been much of a show. People would have given up watching. So you have to have more trauma. You have to have situations like Terminus, right? After the prison falls and they wind up making it to Terminus and all the shit that happens there. That has to exist. It's not that it would exist in a real world, but it has to exist in a show. Realistically, Rick's way of doing things makes more sense than Shane's in the long run, because Shane, for one thing, he's only really concerned about himself, Lori, and Carl. He does care about the rest of the group. It's not that he doesn't. He does want to protect them. He does want to keep them safe. But when it comes right down to it, Carl and Lori come above everybody else. And if it came down to it, he would protect them and let the rest of the group die. That's just the way Shane is. Rick, on the other hand, would protect the whole group. Yes, he wants to protect Lori and Carl, but he would also go out of his way to protect everybody, even if the choice was between saving everybody and saving Lori and Carl. I think he would save the majority of people, at least early on. Now that changes later and he becomes a whole different person, but at least early on, that's what he would do. I think, looking at the apocalypse in general, if this was a real apocalyptic scenario, a real zombie apocalypse popping up, Rick's way of doing things, holding on to some of the law and order and realizing that we need to have some kind of structure in a society, is just as important as doing what it takes to survive. Is just as important as being willing to kill Randall, for instance. That's one thing where Rick does kind of mess up, and he makes a huge mistake, is he doesn't kill Randall. And some of that is because Lori can't watch Carl. She loses track of her son constantly. But realistically, a lot of it is because Rick just doesn't have he doesn't have it in him early on to do that sort of thing, because he thinks that, well, if we do this, we're losing what we were. We're losing a piece of our humanity. He buys into Dale's narrative there. And in reality, that's not the case. In reality, there's certain things you have to do to protect and save your group. And that's where I think there's a balance between Rick and Shane and what you can find in there. Shane is not all right. Rick is not all right. But if you take a little bit of both of them, if you take Rick's kind of ability to hold on to the old world and the laws and the rules and that kind of thing, if you pull in that, and you pull in Shane's ability and acceptance of doing things like shooting Otis in the leg when he's running away from, realistically, maybe they both could have got away, but in that situation, Shane did what he had to do to survive and make sure the stuff got back, because if he didn't do that, if they both went down, that stuff doesn't get back. Carl dies too. Now you've lost Shane, Otis, and Carl, right? So he did what he felt in the moment had to be done, and he wound up killing Randall in the end, but he would have killed him much earlier if Rick would have stepped back and let him. And I think that's if they had run things together, if they had found a way to work together, with Shane focused on this is the stuff we have to do to survive, and Rick focused on this is the stuff that we have to do to maintain our humanity, maintain some semblance of order, and they had found a way to kind of combine those methods, things would have turned out a lot better for the group in general. And I don't think Shane, if he hadn't gone off the deep end and lost his marbles in the second season, I think they could have actually both survived and had a very good group on the farm. Realistically, they could have made that farm work, and they could have had a great time out there. They could have even brought in new survivors and that kind of thing over time. I think the farm could have been built up with some walls around it and stuff. It would have been an outstanding thing to see. But obviously, they needed some drama for the show, so we didn't get that. But what I want to know now is what you guys think in the comments down below. What would you follow Shane or Rick? Would you would you have that mentality? What kind of mentality would you take into a zombie apocalypse situation? Do you think that Shane had it right, where it's, our survival above everything else, we don't care about anything, we just kind of get it done? Or is Rick's more old school approach with a little bit of being willing to do what needs to be done? Is that the better way? Or is there a combination of the two that you think would make the most sense? I want to know your thoughts in the comments down below. We're going to be focusing the videos I've got this week. We focused on the leadership styles and what would work best in the zombie apocalypse. And then, of course, this video with Shane and Rick. And then we're also going to be diving into what would actually happen, what the world would really look like, what communities would actually do in this situation like the zombie apocalypse. So that's going to be an interesting one. Stay tuned for that, and make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it. Like the video to let me and YouTube know that you enjoyed the video. Leave your comments down below, and if you want to help support the channel in other ways, I've got channel memberships, a Patreon, all of the good stuff where you get early access to videos, get your name on the screen, all that kind of stuff. So all of that is available, typical YouTube parlance, right? But everybody I want to thank you all for watching. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.